Well, hello. Thanks for coming back to check out another video. So, I feel very springy. I got little daisies all over my dress. Anyway, we are here today to do a tag video. So this is the Declutter tag, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. I had no idea that this existed, but Angela left me a comment on one of my videos recently, and she said, hey, could you go check this out and maybe do this? So this was created by Ava Tews. I think that is how you say her name. I had never heard of her before, but I watched her Declutter video, fell in love with it, thought this was a great idea. And then I looked at some of her other content and I was like, oh, you're funny. I'm sticking around. So I want to say first, thank you to Angela for pointing this out to me. And then of course, thank you to Ava for creating it. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe I have seen Alejandra Lisette do this video as well. So I will leave her link down below. Everyone will be in the description box for your nosiness. So I think Ava's whole concept with this was to actually declutter these makeup products. I'm not going to declutter them. They are products where I would really like to just get these used up and out of my life. I'm not really hate panning them, but I'm low-key hate panning them. You know what I mean? So I know we all do that and I know it's all bad. But anyway, so I'm not actually going to declutter any of these items as we sit here today. But I did think that this was just a fun way to explore your makeup and maybe see okay, these are the things that I would declutter, hypothetically. So I should probably push myself to really try to use them, test them out, and form a good solid opinion on them and kind of make sure that I don't need to declutter them. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna ramble anymore. Let's just get right on into these prompts. Okay, so the first prompt is a makeup item that is impractical. I had 3 things come to mind right away. So the first one is this little Benefit Gold Rush blush in this, I always want to say it's a Gold Rush blush in the shade Gold Rush. It's just the Gold Rush blush. Now mine is just a little mini guy. I like the Benefit blushes. I think that they are quite lovely. However, this box packaging is impractical, and I know I have the mini. Maybe it's a little bit different if you have the full-size guy, but how are you gonna get your brush in here? It gets more and more difficult every day, you know what I mean? So I'm really nervous as I start to use this blush up. It's just gonna get harder and harder to use it. I'm probably gonna have to depot it. So while I really like the Benefit blush formula, I will not be purchasing any of their blushes that come in these boxes. I'm just totally turned off by this. Just this packaging is super impractical, and that's why it was one of the first things that I thought of when I read this question. Okay, my next 2 items to share with you for impractical makeup, it's not because of the packaging, it's because it's this is an extra step and this is bougie, and is it really necessary, you know? So the first one I want to share with you is a liquid highlighter. So this is from ABH. This is their Liquid Glow in the shade Perla. I've used up so many of these. I've used up so many things like this. So how I use them is I mix them into my foundation. Now typically I like a matte foundation. And when you mix in a liquid highlighter, you kind of get this lit from within glow, like a satin finish. So why doesn't Haley just buy satin foundations? I think matte foundations wear better, but they do make you look a little lifeless, hence why I like to use this. But I realize that this is kind of impractical. This is an extra step. It's really, at the end of the day, is it super necessary? Probably not. If I just failed to use this, my makeup will still look fine. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to bring this in for an impractical item, even though it is something that I greatly enjoy. And then the last one for impracticality, kind of along the same veins, this is from CoverGirl. This is their Clean Fresh Prep and Set Water Mist. I've used up countless products like these, Smashbox has their Photo Finish Primerizer Water. MAC has their MAC Fix Plus, which is also a prepping spray. There's this one. I'm sure there's countless other ones on the market. So how I use these is after I put down my primers, I will spray my face with this and then use my beauty sponge and pat it in. It's just a really nice experience, not gonna lie. But again, is it necessary? No, probably not. I feel like this just kind of gives some type of hydration back into my skin after skincare and primers and just, all of that. So I do like the experience of it, but is it necessary? No. Do I recommend that you add this into your makeup routine? By no means. All right, 2, a mascara that is definitely expired. Let me just tell you guys, I don't adhere to that 3 to 4 month rule. I go until they go. and sometimes that's a little bit gross. So how I decide that a mascara is done is when it just either flakes, it dries out, or it just no longer like, you know how sometimes like you'll be using a mascara and you're like, oh, I really love the length and the volume that this gives my lashes. And then you use it like, you know, a few months later and you're like, this is not doing what it was doing when it was brand new. That's kind of how I decide that it's time to chuck them. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you guys, these have been open since September of 2021. Okay. So I have this little mini guy, which is a Milk Makeup Kush mascara that Laura sweetly sent me. She knows this is my favorite mascara, and it really is. And yeah, I've had this open since September. I think that's when her like little care package arrived, which was very sweet of her to do. So yeah, still using this. And then at the same time, I opened this. So this is my lash primer, which is the violet one from Milani. So both of these have been kicking around since September, but I honestly haven't had any reaction to my eyes. Like, I feel fine. They still work fine. They still perform fine. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The first tube of Milani, the violet one that I had, I purchased in September of 2020, and I used it until September of 2021 when I then replaced it with this one. So I'm probably going to get a year of use out of this as well. Okay, question 3 is a red lipstick that you never wear. Now, I am not really a big red lipstick person. I stick more to pinks, browns, and maybe some peaches, things like that. So I don't really have any reds, but I went with like the next best thing. This is a lipstick. It is called Brown Rose. So by having rose in the title, it kind of makes you think like red leaning, right? But this is a lipstick that I do struggle to reach for. It is a really pretty shade, but I feel like I go back and forth. I'll put it on one day and I'm like, ooh, this looks really nice on you, Haley. And then I'll put it on the next day and I'm like, Haley, what are you doing with your life? So this is from Uden's Eye. This is one of their just like bullet lipsticks. I don't know what name they call it, but it is in the shade Brown Rose, like I said. So here's what this looks like. I think it does very much. It's in the red family. You know what I mean? It's not like a bright in your face, like traditional bold red, like the MAC lipsticks, but it is still very much a red lipstick. So there it is. This is my only what I would classify red lipstick. You know, this is the only red lipstick that I have in my collection that I would classify. And it really is hard to reach for. I don't know if it's because it's a little intense and it's red, and so I don't know what eye looks to pair it with. So if you have red lipsticks, even if they're not like spot on matchy to this, just a red lipstick, what kind of eye looks do you like to wear your red lipsticks with? Okay, so this next one, a high-end item that is not worth the money. Ooh, I think I'm gonna ruffle some tail feathers here, so please do not get offended. We all like different things. We all have different preferences. So just because I don't really like something or don't jive with it, who says that anymore? Doesn't mean that you can't keep loving it. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there's something in your collection that you really don't like or don't think is worth the money, which is what this prompt is. And I absolutely love it. So let's just remember that. So what did I pick out? I picked out the new Melt palette, the Mori Mariposa. I feel kind of bad like picking this. Okay, so I've been scorned by Melt once before with the 420 palette. But then I kept hearing like, oh, the 420 palette is not a good representation of the Melt formula. So I thought, okay, I will wait for 1, a color story that they released that speaks to me, and 2, for a palette where people who are like really experienced with Melt, they come out and say like, this is the great Melt formula. Well, enter this. I could not get this color story out of my head when I saw this, and I saw so many people put up their 3 looks 1 palette or like whatever review video, and they all said this is the great Melt formula, this is the easy formula to work with. I just don't find that to be the case. I find that the shadows are a bit fussy, and what I mean when I say that is that I will go in with a shadow and you place it down and then you start to blend it. Well, 9 times out of 10 it kind of blends into way, especially like these matte green shades up here. I really struggle to get them built up to the intensity that I want. Now the shimmer shades in here are quite lovely. I do have to say I've had a lot of fun with this orange shimmer shade. I've had a lot of fun with the pink one. And then as far as the mattes go, I really do enjoy these berry shadows right here. But at $70, this palette is more of a regret. And that price point kind of like factors into that, so it makes it harder to stomach. You know what I mean? Like if this was a $20 palette and I didn't like as many shades as I don't like within this, then I wouldn't feel as like salty about it. But since that's $70 and there are, you know, shadows that I'm still like exploring this palette. I'm still trying to make it work. Don't get me wrong. But as I sit here right now, just to me, this wasn't worth the $70 price point. And I'm still salty because, yeah, you know me, I love my greens and these greens are just underperforming. I feel like if you want to treat yourself to like a palette, you can't go wrong with like a Natasha Denona midi palette, and those are $65. Or you couldn't go wrong with getting like a Lorac palette, which are usually in like the $40 price range. There are just so many, or like the indie brands, you know what I mean? Like typically indie brand palettes tend to be around the $30, $40 mark. I just feel like there are far better formulas and far better options to spend your money on. And so I just don't think that this is worth like that $70 price tag. Okay, so the next one is a drugstore dud. So I feel like this product, when it first released, was really hyped and people were giving it great reviews, and I bought it. I bought into that. And I just don't like it. So this is the Juvia's Place I Am Magic foundation. I have mine in the shade 650 Alexandria. I will link my ranking my foundations video because in that video I swatched out all of my foundations. So if you would like to go reference that to see what I'm talking about. This though is described as a light neutral foundation. I really like to buy neutral foundations. I feel like they look the best on me. This is very yellow. There is no getting around it. I don't know who decided that this was neutral, but they have obviously never seen a neutral undertone in their life, if you want my humble opinion. And then two, this is a super thick, cakey foundation. Like, remember the Maybelline Dream Mousse foundation that came in the little pot? That's what like this is. It's that same type of thickness. And I try to go in and use such a little amount and it still looks thick and cakey on my face. So I'm just like struggling. I am tempted to try mixing this in with like a BB cream or maybe one of my more, like I have the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea foundation, for instance, and that one leans a little bit more on the like watery serum-y side. So I'm wondering like, should I mix the two and then maybe that would help? Either way though, I just think that this was a huge disappointment and a huge drugstore dud. Okay, so the next prompt is a palette that you forgot you owned. And when I first saw this, I was like, I'm amazing. I know every single palette that I have. But let me be real with you. I opened up my drawers and then I was looking through them and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I own this. So it's the Juvia's Place, the Honey Quad from their Rebel line, and I'm holding it backwards so you can't really see what it is. So I don't even think it's the fact that this is a quad and that it's a smaller palette and that it gets like overlooked in my collection in that sense, because I have the Mints and the Army one, and then I do have some smaller palettes like my BH Birthstone palette, or I have like the Natasha Denona Mini Xenon palette, things like that in my collection, and those still get used. This one, however, I don't know, like I forget that I have it. I forget to pull it out. I think part of the reason is I really wanted an orange palette, but I think I wanted like a little bit more of a padded out, maybe like an expanded kind of monochromatic orange palette, because while this is really pretty, it's not all the shades that I want. Does that kind of make sense? And then especially like the shimmer shade that's up here in the top corner, it's one of those more like darker bronzy shimmer shades that I just never reach for. So I struggle to reach for this. I forget that I have it. I have oranges in other palettes that I'm probably more likely to reach for over this one, so. Okay, so the next prompt is a foundation that is not your shade match. Now, I do have some foundations that are probably like a little bit too dark for me right now, but if I would just get out and see the sun, I could, start wearing them. So this one though, I really don't think there's any way for me to make it work, but I'm not ready to like let it go yet. So this is from Wet n Wild. This is their Photo Focus foundation, and I have mine in the shade Rose Ivory, if I'm not mistaken. So as you can probably tell in like the glass bottle, or I don't know, maybe the lighting's a little bit washing it out. This is a very pink heavy foundation, which with a name like Rose Ivory, I guess that's what you would, imagine. Like I said though, when we talked about the other foundation, I am just much more of like a neutral undertone. That is what I tend to like. I just think that looks the best. So when I put this on, like I don't know, it just looks off. You know what I mean? Like I can't get it to work for me. And I do think it's because it's that pinky undertone and it just doesn't match with me. It doesn't like play well with like I was gonna say it doesn't play well with my other features. Like, it doesn't look right with my nose. What I mean is, I think it just looks off with like my hair color, and since I am used to just seeing myself in neutral foundations, I think when I put this on, I'm like, what's wrong with you? You look a little sickly. So yeah. Okay, we're back to Ruffling Tail Feathers, a product that wasn't worth the hype. Are you ready? So I only have one of them to show you, but I picked out my e.l.f. putty bronzer. No, this is the putty blush. I have mine in the shade Bali. So this is what it looks like. It's a really pretty shade, and I will give you a swatch of it since, you know, we swatched the lipstick. I'll swatch the things that make sense to swatch. But there it is, it's this one right here. So yeah, these putty products by e.l.f., I feel like when they first hit the market, everyone was raving about them. Like, the putty primer is amazing, which I've had that and used it up, and I didn't personally like it. And then, you know, these started coming out, and everyone was like, oh, their putty blushes and their putty bronzers are so good. But I've used this, and I feel like when I use this, by the end of the day, it doesn't look like I have blush on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, my skin just eats it, I guess. And then I have never, let me be clear, used their putty bronzers. The shade that I wanted to try, I can never find. So I didn't, you know, I'm not going to fool with it. But I'm kind of glad that I can't ever find that shade. So what I've heard people say about the bronzers is the same thing that I have to say about this product, where they put it on and then like a few hours into their makeup life look, it just looks like they don't have any bronzer left on their face. So I don't know why these were so hyped up. And then, you know, I guess the more that people use them, the more that they found out like, oh, I don't really like this. So yeah, this is a product that I think was like overhyped completely. All right, 2 more questions. So this is a concealer that you can't make work. Now, I do want to be very clear with you guys. I think that I have stumbled onto a way to make it work, but I don't know. I'm still exploring that. So anyway, I'm going to show you an empty packaging. This is from Bare Minerals. This is one of their like powdered concealers. So this was in the shade Bisque, which is a very like pinky toned type of concealer. So I got this, and then I got the Well Rested because I heard so many people say like, this is a great like powder concealer. Like, you can easily set down your cream concealer with it, or you can just wear it on your own, and it's like quick and effortless and easy and on the go. And I was like, well, that sounds really nice. So the Well Rested shade was quite lovely, but this Bisque shade is super pink leaning, and you can really tell even if you just put on like the teensiest bit too much, like your under eyes are gonna look very pink. Just let me be real with you. So I have struggled using this. I was using this to set down my eyeshadow primer, and I was using a eyeshadow primer that has more of like a yellow base to it, because then I felt like this neutralized it out. So this was just a super like big struggle to reach for. I have dumped all of the product out, and I've dumped all of the remaining product of my Well Rested out, kind of like mixed them together, because I'm hoping, since Well Rested is more yellow leaning and this one is more pink, that they will neutralize each other, and I can use this as like an all over face setting powder is like my plan going forward. But that's a lot of effort to get like a concealer to work, you know what I mean? All of my cream concealers, like, I know this is like a little bit of an untraditional answer, but honestly, all of my cream concealers that I have open and that I've tried and tested, I really do enjoy them, so I just had to go with this. All right, so very last question. It is, if you had to start one makeup category from scratch, what would that be? So I was thinking about it, and the answer quite quickly popped into my head. And at first I was like, well, that's a silly answer. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, that's the perfect answer. I'm gonna go with bronzers, specifically powdered bronzers. So I feel like this is a little bit of an unexpected answer, because it's like, well, it's bronzer. Like, you just use it, you know what I mean? It's not like blushes or something like that. But as I sit here with you today, I have 8 powdered bronzers in my collection, and that is just overwhelming to me. Like, it's bronzer. They all look the same. Why do I have 8 of them? Why? Who let me purchase 8 bronzers? So it's overwhelming, and it would just be nice. Like, if someone just snuck into my house tonight and just stole all my bronzers, I wouldn't even be that mad. Like, I would just go out and purchase 1 bronzer. You know what I mean? So that would be the category that I would love to start over. Like, I would love to like really scrutinize my 8 bronzers and pick out like maybe 1 or 2 favorites, because, you know, I gotta have some variety, I guess, but then just have that be my bronzer category. But I'm not like the type of person, like, I want to use them up, you know what I mean? Like, they're not inherently bad. I'm just overwhelmed by having 8 powdered bronzers. So that wraps up the declutter tag. Again, thank you, Angela, for suggesting this and for putting this on my radar. Thank you, Ava, for creating this. And I do have to say, you guys should go check her out. She is quite funny. Like, I really fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole, like, watching her. So, that is it. I hope you guys are having a good day, a good night, or a good whatever. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye.